Last week, on the occasion of Thanksgiving, I have been speaking about gratitude as a necessity, essential to survival, and not just a politeness on a special day. Because, at this point in history, it looks to me we are asked to open to the earth as our elder, as our teacher, because she can teach us about who we really are. And healing can come, if we open up and trust in that stream of aliveness, which is operating since over 4.5 billion years. And if we connect with that stream of aliveness in our own bodies, and that this stream carries more wisdom than our thinking mats. And the question is, how do we generate the willingness and the capacity to trusting that self-organizing, self-regenerating intelligence? How can we, really start to go into communication with that? Because as soon as we do it, all kinds of unresolved issues are coming up. Doubt and fear and boredom and disbelief and all the rest of it. So how can we, get past this threshold of afflictive emotions on which we are currently poised, in order to open up to that guidance we so totally need. And we can't do it, by just pushing all of that aside and pretending, it's not there, but it needs to be included in the work. Because there's a lot of energy caught up in those patterns. So we need to include it. There is no way around it. We can't get past it, suppress it or anything like this, but it needs to be included in the work. And it's not just individual, but it's also ancestral and collective. It's basically, our old paradigm, which is dying. Because indeed it is scary to trust that the earth knows better than us humans, because we have been conditioned in a way, to believe that we know everything and that we can control everything through science and technology. And to suddenly, put that to one side and no longer operate in those patterns, that's of course impossible. First, we need to notice it, and then the work starts. Once we step out of the box of the old paradigm and look at the paradigm, no longer caught in it, that is the most important step. But then, of course, it's going to be like a dance of in and out, in and out, in and out. And that takes as long as it takes. Because, the grip which consumer capitalism has on us with these promises, of being able to guarantee invulnerability and endless comforts, that's really hard to let go of because it's extremely seductive. And, and we have done so much to kind of influence society to do more shopping, to do more this, to do more that, to believe in all of this. So nobody is exempt from that conditioning, really, no one. So it needs to come onto the table, it needs to be part of the work. And, and therefore I think actually to say, I don't know how to do it is a good place to start, because that sounds to me very realistic. I just don't know how to do this. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try it. Because if we can, if we can say, I don't know, then this is a powerful point of departure, making space for alternatives to emerge. If we can really drop down, from our deep-seated defenses in the head, constantly, splitting up off the energy into the head and getting caught up in stories to try to desperately make sense of the situation, then we'll have again and again, drop down into the body, drop down into the heart, and open to the uncertainty and the unknown. And in this way, we are offering our stories, we are offering our preconceived conclusions, we are offering it all up, and offering ourselves to be an antenna, to be a channel for that, which isn't manifest yet, but which can come online if we are clearing out some space and also having that intention clear in our hearts. Because there is this intelligence available to guide our process of human development or evolution, because it has already been guided by that. It started all with stardust, as you know, and by now, there are these very complex life forms we call Homo sapiens. So there was some kind of intelligence, immanent intelligence, basically involved in some way or another with this process. And that's that intelligence I think we can trust. The only thing we need to do is to become sensitive to that guidance, which means, to work with everything which is basically, quote unquote, in the way, but not as a nuisance, but as a step, as a sharpening stone. The obstacles are not in the way, the obstacles are the way. And I don't know is really a good place to start. And there's a beautiful quote by the Zen master Suzuki Roshi, and he says, not knowing is most intimate. So if we don't know what something is and really go close, that kind of knowing without any concept is most intimate, because it's not done in the head only. It's a sensing, it's a direct, intimate contact. Not knowing is most intimate. And it's also scary. But that unfamiliarity of not being able to land anywhere cannot make us incredibly sharp. Not knowing is most intimate. And as I've also said, the word sapiens in the compound Homo sapiens actually comes from the Latin word sapere, which means to taste, to go really, really close to something and take it in the mouth, like a little baby who wants to know what something is and takes it in the mouth, because that seems to be the closest contact it can make with something. So a willingness, to suspend disbelief and keep an open mind, to engage in an experiment. No need to make any promises, but just suspending disbelief is enough. That's enough for entering the experiment, and then we can find out for ourselves. So it's a kind of an attitude which we need to bring to the table. And attitude is a huge deciding factor in any endeavor. The attitude we adopt in any situation partially determines how the situation will unfold. And I'm sure you have seen that in your own lives. Attitude is very important. Is there an openness and a suspension of disbelief, or do we already know before it's not going to work, or it's not going to be this, it's not going to be that? And if that's, if that's coming up in the mind, it can be included in what we are aware of. It doesn't have to go away. It can stay there, but aware, being known for what it is. Being known that there is fear, being known that there is doubt, knowing that there is anxiety, or knowing that there is spacing out. It's all okay, but needs to be known that it is present. And that again, brings us right back to the core teaching of the Buddha. So we need to pay more attention to our attitude, to the attitude with which we are engaging, with these challenging times. Where, the world is quivering, or we can say the world is dancing with uncertainty. And we need to get better at improvising with that uncertainty. So not, constantly trying to get back to how it was in the past, but opening to something new, which we don't know what it is. Because if we would know it, it wouldn't be new. And that's how evolution works. Something emerges, out of the complex conditionality, which is a new response. And if we are sensitizing our minds, if we are sensitizing our hearts, we are sensitizing our capacity to be listening with the body, we can receive that information, It will emerge into our formation, and we will become that. We'll become the answer to the question. By the simple fact, that our bodies and the bodies of the body of the planet is one and the same body. And we are in constant communication through eating, drinking, breathing, and so on, as we know already. And that's a valid kind of communication. It doesn't need all to be done in writing and speaking. There are so many other ways of communication. It's kind of, osmosis is that form of communication is called. It's a wordless communication. It's a participatory communication. And if we start to think too much about it, it escapes us and it gets very complicated again. But if we just sense into it, it starts to make sense. Just saying, I don't know, but I'm willing to improvise. I don't know, but I'm willing to improvise and see over the coming weeks and months. I'm willing to find out through trying it. Because we have anyway run out of ideas already, It's very, very clear that the polycrisis cannot be solved from the same level of consciousness which has created it. So there needs to be a shift. And I think people who come here to these Wednesday gatherings, what we all have in common is that we are kind of sensing, intuiting that there is something happening. And, we are kind of shaky with this. So we need each other to stabilize that intuition. And that's what we are doing. So by walking the question, we are becoming the answer. And it sounds kind of weird, but it's actually, we can experience it. That a certain kind of way of knowing becomes more accessible through the practice. And then the doubt becomes a little bit less, And because of that, the steadiness increases, and there's again a bit more capacity to stay connected with that process. And it is a very, very, step by, I would say, bite by bite, like an earthworm, biting off a little bit, chewing it, digesting it. So it's a organic process, and the earthworm doesn't exactly know where he's or she's going, because I don't think even they have eyes, but it's more like feeling your way, sensing your way, intuiting your way through the fact, that the body of the earth and our own bodies are one body. And there is some kind of communication happening, and we are just in the process of learning the language together. Yeah. So let's go into a meditation now again and try to drop a little bit deeper. So let's just start by bringing our attention to our inner space, space of the body, the heart area, and just taking a screenshot of that space. You sense an openness, sensing a aliveness there. Maybe you can sense your heart beating. Just how do you feel right now coming onto this call with us, and everything else that's happening in your life at this point, and the holiday season starting, and lots of things happening. And by saying yes to whatever is there, we can actually connect more fully to our bodies and our breath. This, breath is a powerful regulation tool, a powerful friend that is with us since the beginning of our life after birth. And the oxygen we breathe is all being produced by green plant life and plankton. And every exhalation takes us deeper into the body. And notice, where your body feels safe and warm, accessible. Just slowing down the breath, dropping deeper. And maybe you can also start feeling the connection with the ground through your foot soles or through the seat you're sitting on. And if the ground feels somehow distant, not putting any pressure. It's okay, whatever is there. Just respecting the state of your nervous system right now. And if you can sense the soil, notice, as when the mind is settled, the body is settled and at ease, there's more capacity to connect with what is there. Maybe with the out breath, you can send down some roots into the soil. And with the in breath, breathing up the vastness and the stability of the earth. Everything, which we integrate and heal, puts more ground under our feet, so to say. The less we are caught up in the head, worrying and fearing, desiring, and so on, the more is that sense of groundedness and connection with where we are right now on the planet. So we can see, how that process of integration and healing heals also our connection with the land. And that's what we are working for, to be more deeply, consciously connected with the land so that we can live from this place and step into a different era of how we live, how we organize our systems. But first we need to ground ourselves in the true situation that these bodies and the body of the planet are of one body. This is where those new solutions need to emerge out of. Everything else is just a repetition of the same old, same old. It doesn't really help. And this is why this saying by our Komolafa has been going around the whole planet. Times are urgent. We need to slow down. Because of the urgency, we really urgently need to slow down. It sounds kind of weird, but that's what it is. The situation is very paradox. This is the first year that we have gone past 1.5 degrees of average temperature rise. So we are now in an era, where we have passed by what was decided in Paris, to be the limit where we should never go past. But we have gone past this year, 2024. So obviously, all of the good ideas haven't really cut it. So we need to find other ways of responding. And it sounds really kind of counterintuitive, but it is about getting out of the thinking mind and opening ourselves to a much bigger guidance, a much vaster guidance. And asking for it. And and at the same time practicing in a way so we have more capacity to feel, to sense, to connect, to attune to this aliveness, the vibrancy, the rhythm of the earth as a self-organizing, intelligent being we are part of. Maybe some doubt comes up or thinking this is really weird and is that really Buddhism and all the rest of it. Just say, I don't know. But I'm willing to try it out. And sensing into that vibrancy. I really like that image, of the ornaments of the mother ringing, the ringing sound, the humming. Of that aliveness, which knows what to do. It's not necessarily pleasant or comfortable, can be brutal at times. It includes, the prey relationship that, every being eats other beings. It's not kind of a birthday party, kind of all nicey nice, but it is working. And somehow, because of our technology, we have been unbalancing that self-organizing intelligence. Otherwise, all other animals are held in check by each other. But we, the mammalian human beings, we have come up with the atomic bomb and all other kind of things. There's no animal who can hold us in check other than ourselves. Or the earth, of course. And she is shouting at us now. But we still don't really hear it, it looks like, in terms of adjusting our life systems. And of course, it takes generations to do that. There have been so many, attempts been made, and truly millions of NGOs and websites. There's so many attempts, but still it doesn't seem that we have gotten the critical mass yet for that shift to take over how we live. Still a lot of polarization going on. So we need to continue. Continue for this understanding to gain more ground in people. And we can make ourselves available. That's how we can start. That's what we are already doing. And then, we meet other people and they might get somehow interested, and that's how it works. And others, again, they just think, what's that? I mean, they don't get it because they are not there yet. That's okay. That's just the way it is. And then also, notice the spaciousness of the mind and of the heart, which might have come about through sitting and listening in this way. When the heart feels like really a sense of recognition of its yearning to serve this evolutionary intelligence for the benefit of all sentient beings in whatever skill and mode is yours. Just, sensing into what is calling you in particular. If there is anything, and if not, then just being with the general yearning, for evolution, for maturing, for bringing forth our capacities in a more full way. And just trusting that urge to evolve. And, sensing it with the impress in the heart area. It's almost like, for me, it's like a facet. It's a manifestation of metta, of the Brahma Viharas. Expanding perception. in the service of maturing as a human species, as a human being. At this point, seems to be the most complex life form which has this reflective consciousness. So we know, but we also know that we are knowing. That gives us a particular responsibility also to rein ourselves in, because there is no other animal which reins us in other than ourselves. That's the challenge of being a Homo sapiens. That's why awakening is possible, because of that reflective consciousness. And it needs to be trained. It's there, as a capacity, but it needs to be trained and strengthened. And that's what meditation is all about. It's awareness, mindfulness. Knowing, what we are doing. And then adjusting if it doesn't work. And going through the pain of metabolizing the addiction. The addiction to capitalism and consumerism as a empty promise for invulnerability, which has nothing to do with being human. So as we are now, becoming aware of these empty promises, we can use that as a engine for our evolution, rather than, getting all upset and thinking this and thinking that, seeing it and then using it as a encouragement for growing up. Because everything else is a waste of time, really. And we are not, we won't find the answer in terms of a sentence written down anywhere, but we can become the answer by walking the question and sensing that urge to evolve, which is part and parcel of being a human being. It's in there. It's part of the living intelligence of the planet, which is constantly changing, and it's been doing so since 4.5 billion years. It's just, what relationship do we have with that yearning? Is it one of, trying to get over it and get past it and stop it? Or is it one of compassion, attention, curiosity? And then we don't need to make it happen. It is happening. And I can even see it here, in our Wednesday group. And, those of you who are here already longer, there's people who are with the group since almost like 1.5 years or a year. It started in April last year. I didn't know actually what I was doing in the beginning. And it just slowly, bite by bite, it unfolded. And I'm really grateful for, I always have to come up with something to teach on the Wednesdays. And sometimes what should I do? What should I say? And I always trust it's going to come up. Sometimes it's just going to come up like 2 hours before it starts or an hour before. But if I'm okay, to be in that uncomfortable space of not knowing, I can meanwhile trust that it's going to come out in some way. Because it's not me. It emerges from the field and just goes through my mouth for some reason because I have offered. And, in the Ajahn Chah tradition where I was originally trained, one of the ways, we were trained is do not prepare for a Dhamma talk. No preparation. You just need to sit there and go through the nerves, of allowing the Dhamma to come through. And I can see, the wisdom of that. So it looks like, we are part of a collective self-healing mechanism of the earth. And allowing that to come through us in whatever way it does. And just, sensing into what's your calling, what's your passion, where do you feel you can contribute. And that's it then, because our skills, our talents will be used. There's so many ways of healing, being a doctor, being a therapist, being a body worker, being a nun, being a cook, being a gardener. So many ways, how we can contribute to the healing of our world. It's just like an inner listening. And the patience. And, and the willingness to be in that paradox. Not knowing is most intimate. And, and sensing a part of us is like scrambling. But I want to know, I want to know. And another part is trusting and okay. And then back and forth it goes. And then sometimes, by looking back when we started, when we first connected with that urge to evolve consciously, can you see that there is some miles have been walked with that? Can you see that there is some manifestation in your life? And then whenever you get doubted, whenever you get thrown, just reflecting on that. There has been some response from life. Sometimes we know very clearly, and sometimes we don't. And then we just make more space. And you're opening ourselves consciously to this collective self-healing mechanism that is working through so many people around the world and through us as well. Millions of groups, millions of NGOs. We're like all part of this orchestra, the immune system of the planet. And whenever, we stumble, whenever we lose heart, just be with that. And then when you're ready again, step up, step in more fully. That's how it works. Sometimes we need a rest, we need a break. Sometimes we need to read some really very, very uplifting literature, or listen to a talk, or go out in nature, or look at some really beautiful works of art, listen to music. There's so many ways, how we can uplift the heart and the mind when it loses energy. Now we can just, before we end the meditation, focus on the top of the head and like opening the crown chakra. And just posing that question, is there anything I need to know right now? Any updates for me? Just sensing the vibrancy of the aliveness we are sitting inside of, streaming through the body. This is not an intellectual process. We have this neocortex, which enables us to engage in reflective consciousness. Knowing that we are knowing. Conscious awareness. Like a mirror, being aware of its capacity to reflect any object which is brought in front of it. Being aware of that capacity, not as an object, but by being it, being that capacity to reflect. conscious awareness or refuge in Buddha. And then, we're slowly coming to the end of the meditation and going back into the body, sensing the weight of the body on the cushion on the chair, the pressure where the body meets the surface of where we are sitting on. Maybe you can sense the ground under your feet. And as you're slowly opening your eyes,